get serious about building content sites and building a profitable business online? Welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast. We bring you the latest field-tested tips, tricks, and strategies for building a profitable online asset. We interview industry experts, share customer success stories, and reveal our own experiences working on hundreds of sites to inspire and motivate you to make something happen. Let's do this.
Today, I sit down with Mike Beatty. Mike and I met in a Facebook group where we started chatting about the successes and failures of our HARO outreach. We thought it would be kind of cool to do a formal chat about it and record it as a podcast episode. Mike had some specific questions about how I do HARO, and I was curious about how my systems and processes stacked up with his. This episode feels more like a coaching session rather than an interview, which I think will be interesting for anyone who wants to do HARO as a link building strategy. Of course, if you don't want to do it yourself, Niche Website Builders now has a HARO service, which you can learn more about at nichewebsite.builders. Without further ado, here's my chat with Mike Beatty.
This episode is brought to you by Niche Website Builders, an agency dedicated to helping people just like you build profitable content sites. Niche Website Builders are the hands-off content site marketing agency you always wished existed. It's run by content site marketers for content site marketers, and they help both investors and individuals alike build profitable online properties. They provide a fully outsourced approach to content creation, link building, and done-for-you website builds, the same approach they use on their own six-figure portfolios. For example, their content packages come with a proprietary keyword research process, are written by in-house native English speakers, formatted using templates proven to convert, and uploaded to WordPress with affiliate links added so that all you need to do is hit the publish button. Check them out at nichewebsite.builders/show. That's nichewebsite.builders/show and fill out the form to get coupon codes for 10% more content or a 10% discount on links with your first order sent right to your inbox.
Today on the podcast, we have Mike joining us. Mike, thanks for jumping on the podcast. Today is going to be a little bit of a different type of episode. Mike and I met online through a Facebook group. Mike had some questions about HARO, and we started, private messaging about, how I do HARO and some of the success I've had and some of the strategies and tips. Mike has done HARO in the past and has had maybe not as much success. And so we thought, hey, if we're going to be talking about HARO, we might as well do it publicly on the podcast and see if we can, provide everyone else who is interested in HARO some actionable tips to walk away with. So, Mike, welcome to the podcast. Why don't we, before we jump into a HARO conversation, why don't we just give a brief background in terms of who you are and your experience with content sites?
Yeah, cheers, Ben. Yeah, thanks for having me. So I've been doing this since probably like 2018. I did a couple of sites before. One site that I started was really kind of just to get some experience from other people, and I had a podcast with it, and so I was chatting to a lot of people in the space. But yeah, my most recent site is the one that's kind of really kicked off, and it's in the sports space, and it makes six figures a year. So it's I'm just excited to kind of learn a little bit more from people all the time, and people like yourself. It's always good to get chats in whenever possible.
Yeah, cool. We share sort of a similar niche. We're both in sort of the fitness, health, sport space, and I have a few sites in that industry. And obviously, your background is in that as well. You actually work full time in. Yeah.
I'm a PE teacher, so yeah, I've been over in Qatar for the last 7 years or so. So that's kind of why this particular website is a real passion niche, and it's that sort of thing. It's something that I definitely want to do long term. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, awesome. And I took a look at your site, and I mean, we could probably have a whole separate conversation in terms of how you structure your affiliate content, because I'm always impressed with site owners who are doing it just a bit differently. And, in terms of producing really high quality, in-depth reviews. And I think that your site is a really strong example of sort of where the future of affiliate marketing is going. But today we're going to chat about HARO. So maybe for people who aren't familiar with HARO, before we start sharing some actionable tips here, what is HARO? Have you done HARO in the past? And why are you thinking that you sort of want to find some success using HARO?
Yeah, so HARO's like help a reporter out. I think it's actually now just called helpareporter.com.
Yeah.
I think, and it basically, it's a place where you can go and reporters just have tons of different queries in all different niches and things like that. And so I think they have there's 3 emails a day, and if you sign up to all of them, there's normally over 100 queries in each email. So, it's 300 queries a day. This is probably something that most people can answer in there, but it's the systems and the processes which I'm keen to dig into a bit more about, like how you actually filter out and prospect and all that sort of stuff. So, and obviously then if you provide a link to one of these journalists, then if they use your answer, they often send a backlink to your website. And I mean, some of the websites are DR 90 plus sort of thing. You can get some huge websites like Healthline and all sorts of stuff on there. So that's kind of a quick overview of how I understand it anyway. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I guess I would say that there's a free tier to HARO, and then there's a paid tier. And I don't really know anybody that does the paid tier. I think the paid tier essentially allows you to get the emails maybe a bit quicker. Like, so they'll send the emails to their paid list. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's an hour or 2 hours before they actually send it out to the entire general list. And the reason for that is just simply because the response time, how quickly you respond to reporters, because reporters are often on a deadline, generally does have an impact on sort of your success rate. Now, I don't subscribe to the paid version. I don't know anybody that does. I think that you can find success on the paid version or on the free version. But if anybody goes to the website and they see the 2 tiers, I think that the free version is just totally fine. Yeah, and you can get some really amazing backlinks that I don't know how you would get otherwise. Business Insider, Forbes magazine, Healthline, some pretty reputable and notable websites on the internet. So, have you tried HARO before?
Yeah, it's probably been my most successful way of building links, particularly with the new site. But I still know I'm doing a lot wrong. I know for a fact I still haven't really found the right sort of pricing strategy, and I don't know. To be honest, I didn't really realize, because I've never really paid for links or anything before, and so I didn't really realize how expensive. Like if you went to like an agency, like they would quite often charge $1,000 or something for like one link from a high domain rating site, and so I didn't really realize this when I was doing it. So I've probably been really underpaying people that I've been trying to get, and wondering why they keep coming and going. But so that's something that I would definitely like to pick your brains on a bit. But
sure. Well, let's start there then. So in terms of so you had issues just sort of hiring and retaining the people who are responding to the HARO requests.
Yeah, there's been a couple of people that have done it and now they don't do it anymore. But I've still got, there's 2 people that are currently responding to some stuff. So
okay. And what do you pay them right now?
Yeah, I'm fairly sure it's not the best way, but I do $5 per response, and then I pay them like a commission basis on the links that they get. So it's heavily weighted to the commission, to the links that they actually get. It is, I think I've got $100. Actually, let me just find it. $100 for like the highest tier, and I think that is 85 DR, and I use hrefs on that, and then it's like $70 from 60 to 85, I think I do. I'll find the actual thing in a second. And then about $30 or $40, I think, is like, if it's anything under that. So I don't know. I honestly don't know if that's good or bad. But it did start off a lot lower than that when I was kind of, I was bootstrapping everything when I was first getting this site up and running, as you often do. And so I was probably paying half of that for the links originally, and I've increased it now.
Right. Yeah, heavily weighted towards I think the incentives do need to be there in terms of when you capture a link. I think that will incentivize them to actually write a decent response. I structure it a little bit differently. I structure it based on a per hour basis. The reason for that is because the responses may or may not take, like, they may not take an equal amount of time. So $5 per, if you're paying $5 per response, some responses could take, a couple of minutes, but other responses could take upwards of maybe half an hour. I guess it depends the type of responses that you want your VAs or your people responding to. But for me, I'm okay with spending a considerable amount of time researching, because a lot of time journalists will put out a request because they want you to do the research on their behalf. They're a bit lazy. They want you to go and do the work, and so it might require up to 30 minutes. I mean, I say that a response shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. I mean, if you're doing more than 30 minutes of research, then it's probably too much, and it's probably in an area that you are not familiar with, and I don't want them verging into sort of territory that they're not, experts in. But yeah, I mean, so I think a per hour might make sense if you want to sort of compensate just based on different types of responses, because some are going to be just quick, but I mean most are not going to be quick. Now that I'm sort of thinking of the type of responses, at least in the sort of fitness, health, and sport niches. And then I pay, so in terms of per hour, I pay $20 per hour. And then I do incentivize based on the links, and it's just simply $20 a link, a $20 bonus per link. So I don't think that the people who are the people that are responding, that you put in place that are responding to the requests, they're not going to know that. First of all, the people coming to HARO, so the journalists coming to HARO, you're going to find very, very high quality websites. I mean, you can find websites that are, between DR30 and DR40, but I'm finding that I think that what you should rather do in terms of incentivizing, based on, lower DR sites, is just say only respond to sites. Like if you only want sites above DR40 or DR50 or DR60, just have that as part of the prospecting criteria, and say, only respond to sites that have, DR50 plus or whatever. But the people responding to the HARO requests, they're not SEOs. They don't know the value of a link. They're not going to know that a DR80 site or DR90 site is different than a DR50 site. They just see it as all the same. Mm-hmm. And so you want the quality of responses to be kind of equal across the board, and you don't necessarily care. They're not going to necessarily care about the DR of a site. I mean, so I don't think you need to set up a commission structure that is tiered on that, because they're not SEOs. They don't know that. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how I set up the payments. Who are you getting to respond to your HARO requests? Are these people that you've sought out, and where did you find them, and are they experts, or are they more VAs?
Yeah, I've always gone for more like experts, just because when you look at the queries on HARO, there's most of them are really after someone that's like an expert in the field, like they say like personal finance expert quite often and things like that. And so obviously that, if you were in the personal finance niche, that I imagine that must be quite hard to like find someone because I imagine they would want to be paid quite well, if you're going for like, I don't even know, an accountant or I don't know how you would do it, but it obviously, how I've always done it is I look through the queries, and I try and see what is a common expert that they ask for, and then I try and find them. So,
Yeah.
for example, like I was hiring writers from ProBlogger, the job board, and I had a few different experts that were in one thing, and then so I offered one person the writing job, and then I offered someone else the HARO position, and I would have just kept going until someone said yes, basically, because like the
Right.
HARO position is obviously not, it doesn't matter about like the quality as such, but obviously the quality of their response is gonna matter. So
Right.
it's just being an expert. But then I've actually hired recently on Upwork. I realized that you can just go on Upwork and just search for the exact person that you want and find them like that, and then just reach out to them and be like, hey, do you fancy doing this? Do you want to have a chat? I don't know, just have a 20-minute chat with them face to face, see if it's a good fit. But like you say, they have no idea about any of it. Like they don't know what a link's worth.
Yeah.
And they don't really care. Like
Yeah.
they, if you can find someone that's just wants to do it, then that's ideal. But yeah, how do you go about
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I'm a fan of hiring real experts. I know that a lot of people will try to create personas and go go to the depths of creating LinkedIn and profiles and social profiles and create a whole persona around somebody with sort of fake credentials. I mean, that would work. It's not something that I know people that do it, but it's not something I would do. It's not something like ethically in terms of how I want to run my sites. I'd rather just get real experts. So you and I sort of share that. One thing that I've done that's different that I think will help with retention is hiring writers first to write for your site. So if you're going to be hiring somebody who is an expert, you might as well have them write for your site. You might as well have them quality check their writing in terms of how do they write for your site first. And then I would also, upsell them into the HARO position in terms of extra work or bonus work or whatever. I would make sure that in the hiring process that you explain that there are additional opportunities, that there are these other projects that we want to bring them into, and so that they're aware that, hey, it's not just the blog writing, that we are hiring for this sort of dual position. But I think it makes it harder for that person to then just sort of fall off the face of the earth and just like not respond and sort of just quit on a dime, because they're invested into your site as a writer. They know that they're getting the income from that. And they have this sort of extra work with the HARO. It's really hard to hire somebody just for HARO because it's not a meaningful part of their income. And I think that if you would hire somebody and say, okay, like I'm going to be paying you whatever, $1,000 a month to do articles, they can rely on that income. It's a meaningful part of their, their income. And then they have this bonus work, which is HARO. I think that there are, as you're training somebody to be a writer for your site, there, and you're training somebody on the quality guidelines, there is going to be some transfer over to HARO because of how you write HARO responses. And so I think you'll be doing less training in the long run. And I think it'll help with retention. So I think anybody who's going to want to hire somebody for HARO, I would probably not just go look for a HARO expert off of Upwork or a HARO expert off of Fiverr. I would probably just look for an expert that you would hire for your site to begin with, and then upsell them on the additional work. And I've seen like a lot of excellent authors on your about page. Have you asked any of them to do HARO before?
Yeah, so that's actually something that I have done a little bit, but it's I'm very, very picky about my writers, like really picky, and they get an absolute grilling when they come and start writing for the site. And so I'm very, very particular in the early days, and then once they're up and running, I'm much more hands off. But so I'm quite sort of, I have a select few that I only really have two at the minute that are doing it. And one of them who kind of has good like expertise and criteria and stuff like that, but he owns his own business as well, and so he's very time poor. And so what I have done in the past is just kind of like, if I see one that's relevant, or whoever else is doing the HARO outreach, I just say, can you please also look out for anyone that's asking for this expertise or something. And I set up, I do it in Gmail. Like, there's a way that you can set, like, to make a tag. So rather than having to like keep manually searching, I'll get onto that in a second and see. I bet you have better ways as well, because it's a little bit messy the way I do it. But yeah, once I get those, I just manually send them to him, and then I send them to the person and just say, and here's also their email address if you do want to follow up with questions and blah 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 sort of thing. But
Cool.
it's definitely not efficient, and it's time intensive on my part as well. It's like a middleman, and so it's yeah, it would be much easier, I think. But I'd really like that idea though of actually um, hiring a writer that can then also do a bit of this on the side. Yeah, I think that would work really well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's talk about some of the systems and process of responding. Because I mean, one of the things that I don't want to do on a regular basis is I don't want to be hopping in emails and reading emails and prospecting, and I don't want to be a middleman. And I know that a lot of I actually know, I know a good friend of mine does HARO, and he wants to read the emails and prospect on the emails and then send it to the writer and then receive the response and then send it back to the journalist. And so he's facilitating back and forth. And I think that is just, wasting your time. So I guess before we jump into that, I would say that if you are going to be doing HARO, you definitely want to have a well-designed homepage that isn't just a blog roll, that is a static homepage that talks about your brand and who's behind the site, and anywhere that you've been mentioned or featured previously, all of those things that sort of showcase that you're a legitimate business, and also an about page that showcases the expertise behind your authors and anybody who's part of your team. You have that perfectly. I mean, it's one of the best sort of about pages that I've seen, with all of your authors and their credentials and everything like that, linked to their socials and stuff like that. So when you're responding to HARO, when you have the person set up on HARO, oftentimes what will happen is the journalist will go to your website, they'll look at your homepage, they'll look at your about page, and they'll want to see that person who's responding to HARO on the about page. And oftentimes they will actually also go to their LinkedIn. I've chatted with a few journalists, and that's kind of the process. And so their LinkedIn should be on their about page, and then their LinkedIn should actually show that they work for your website as well. So those little things definitely help. They definitely help. Okay, because I think a lot of people are saying that HARO is like becoming a bit more competitive and maybe a bit watered down. And I think the way that you can rise above all of that is by having these things to show that they're real people and they're real experts and you're a legitimate business. And if your business is on their LinkedIn, then it all looks normal. So in terms of the process, when I bring a writer on board, I set them up with a company email address, so that all of the emails are coming into that one company email address, and it's their name. So it's whatever the author's name at website.com. So it's branded, and all the emails are coming into that folder, into that email. The writer will the writer is instructed to be available at the times that the emails are being sent out. So the emails get sent out at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so I give them the option. I say, you have to be available 2 out of 3 of those email time slots. So either 5:30 in the morning, 12:30, or 5:30 at night. You have to be available at least 2 of those times. Now, I suppose it doesn't matter if they're available 2 of those times or 1 of those times or all 3 of those times, so long as the person who is responding to the HARO requests are on time so that they're there and they're consistent every day. So I probably would not hire somebody or put somebody in this role if they weren't at least available at one of those time slots per day, every single day, 5 days a week. Consistency is absolutely key because it's a numbers game. You have to respond to everything that's relevant to you and with high volume, and you have to respond right away. So it's like almost like the emails get sent out at 5:30. Within an hour, we've responded to all of the responses that relate to that specific email time. So I'm doing HARO right now just for one of my sites, and I have one writer in place. For that writer, she will do the 5:30 a.m. slot and the 12:30 p.m. slot. She'll skip the evening slot, but when she comes back the following morning, she will still look at that 5:30 p.m. email and see if there's anything relevant in there. So it's not like she's skipping that email. It's just that she's going to be kind of half a day late to it. Not ideal, but still better to at least respond to all 3 email requests, whatever's coming out in those emails, even if that third one is maybe, half a day late. So I think that timeliness and consistency are key. So she's responsible for that whole process in terms of logging in, looking at the emails. The next step would I guess be prospecting. Now, do you prospect the actual every single email that comes through and then send it to your HARO writer, or are they in there prospecting themselves?
They do it themselves. So I created some very basic training which involves like searching for it, pressing Command F or Control F if you're not a Mac user, and looking for words. So that's what I originally did, but then I did also find that way how I use the Gmail, and that does definitely really help, because then you can put in, there's obviously like particular terms that they tend to use,
keywords,
different keywords, and then it just puts a tag next to each email where that keyword's been hit, and then so it means they only open the emails where it tags it for them, and so that's quite a big time saver as well.
I think that process is good. I mean, I think setting that up is good. I actually don't have that set up on my end. I actually get the HARO writer to go into every email and read each request. I don't think it takes that much time. And I think that I would be, on my end, I would be concerned that maybe the filters are missing something, which has happened.
It definitely does. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, you might not think of all the iterations of like, so for example, like my HARO writer, she's responding to she's a registered dietitian. She's responding to a lot of questions around diets and supplements and stuff like that. And so, maybe a journalist might say RD, short for registered dietitian, or they might say the full like registered dietitian or whatever. And so, you have to make sure that you're including those tags, both of those tags. And so you might not actually think of all the tags that the journalist might use. So anyways, I just get my HARO writer to go in there and respond, just read every single, it's not reading word for word. The first round is just basically skimming, like looking for ones that are related to the niche. She'll write down every single one that's just related to the niche, either food, nutrition, fitness, sport, health. And then she'll do a second pass through where she'll go in and she'll actually like read word for word what that request is and see if it relates to her. Now, sometimes it's easy to just kind of exclude some of those because they'll just be like, we want a medical doctor. Well, it's like, okay, well, you're not a medical doctor. We can just exclude it or whatever. So that prospecting actually takes like less than 5 minutes, even though we don't have like filters set up. It takes her like less than 5 minutes to go through an email. It's not that much time.
So like when she just writing down the request, does she just write the numbers from each email, or is it just like making a quick note?
Yeah, so she'll just have like a sheet and she'll just say, because the emails come and they're like, I don't know, there's maybe 80 requests in an email. So if she'll go through like, okay, number 2 applies, number 10 applies, number 30 applies. She'll just write the actual number of the requests. And then she'll have that list, and then she'll go back into the email and she'll go to number 2 and read it word for word just to see what the criteria is.
Cool. Yeah.
So do you have any process? So do you have a process in terms of like prospecting further than just keywords?
Not really. It's pretty much, yeah, it would be, obviously, I think there's always a section of the email where their kind of queries will go to. And so it's a case of just skip straight to that area and have a look through that section, because just in case it does miss any. But yeah, it's very much just kind of search for those kind of keywords. Have you got other stuff that you do as well then?
Yeah. So when I'm training the HARO writer, the next step of the criteria is, so she'll have access to hrefs. And so there's a couple of things. So first is based on the language used in the request, there's going to be some opportunities that you're just going to want to exclude outright, because, they're probably not going to end up in a link. And so sometimes in a HARO request, a journalist might say, I want to talk to somebody like that language. Like I want to talk to whoever. They'll actually want to like give you a phone call and just chat with you and ask you some questions. And actually, so we responded to a request like that from Business Insider. And the journalist just wanted to chat with her ask her some questions, and it never resulted in a link. So, we've gotten links from Business Insider in other ways, but so you want to just look at the language. There's some certain languages. Sometimes people are looking for podcasts, spots, stuff like that. So you just want to look at the language. But then my HARO writer has access to hrefs. We will set a criteria of anything above DR30. So if it's less than DR30, we just simply ignore that opportunity, even if it's like super, super niche relevant. We just don't think it's worth our time. Now that's something that you might have to decide. If it's super niche relevant and it's a DR25, well, I guess, whatever, you have to set that. But for us, it's DR30 and above. And so a lot of requests come in that are anonymous. So you don't know what the website is. And actually, like some really high authority websites come in at anonymous. So I just say respond to all anonymous requests. But again, there's a lot of anonymous requests that are just kind of like, crappy affiliate sites as well. So, you kind of get what you get. Relevancy is key as well. So like just looking at like, they'll probably give you the title of what the article is that the journalist is writing. And so if the title is sort of not niche relevant, we'll probably skip it. We also skip any links any prospects that we've already gotten a link from. So if we already have a link from Healthline, we don't pursue that opportunity again. May or may not matter for you. But interestingly, like you might respond to Healthline today, and then you won't know that you have a link from Healthline until like 8 weeks from now. So in that 8-week period, you might just continue to respond to Healthline, and you might actually do end up with multiple links from Healthline. But as soon as you sort of have that first link come in, we just sort of stop. We just stop pursuing those opportunities.
Yeah, that's actually an exact question I had. With the payment, obviously, because I pay heavily by commission.
Exactly.
And sometimes they just get a relationship with the journalist, and then we'll go back to them. So I actually included cut it by half basically if you get the repeat link, because I was kind of like, well, surely that's not a bad thing to get a repeat link, but I don't know. It's quite interesting to hear that you say you just cut it out altogether. Yeah.
So I think that's because you're paying $100 as sort of a bonus. I think that it does make sense to not pay $100 for repeat links. I don't know what the price would be, but so we don't pursue repeat links by just responding to requests, but we will get a repeat link if a journalist emails us directly. So that's a a benefit of HARO is that you develop relationships with journalists. Like developed, like we have relationships now with like some pretty high authority websites. We're not going to just say no if they're emailing you. If they say, if they're literally emailing you, they know your first name, they like you, why would you say no, right? But that's not a HARO request. That's just like a journalist emailing you. So we will respond to that, and I still pay the same bonus because I want the answer to be good, and they know that they're going to get the link, but I'm only paying $20 bonus. So I think that it's, it's a bit of a different scenario for you and I.
I've actually, like, as you've been talking, I've made notes, but I didn't want to keep on interrupting you. But about the payment, actually, just jumping back to that, I know it's going to keep going back and forth.
No, that's good. Yeah.
So you said that you pay $20 an hour and $20 per link. So I work off 20 responses, because then that's 100. I pay them $100, and then I figure out their bonus over the last 20 responses, and that just keeps it simple for me. So how much would you pay? How much do you think you would roughly pay someone for like 20 responses?
I don't know about 20 responses, but I can give you a breakdown of, like, let's see here. So just going back, so for links in November, so I'm just looking through my sheet here. I paid this HARO writer $460. Last month it was $120. So I guess that's the range. Like it's I don't know, between $100 and $500 per month.
Yeah.
And we're sort of getting between, I don't know, we're getting between maybe 3 to 10 links a month.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good going, yeah. I was just trying to work out. Yeah, it's roughly, because what I've kind of said is like you should get like at least one a day. So 20 links is, if you do one a day on working days, that's a month roughly. So I tend to find that's kind of what it works itself out to. Sometimes they'll do 2, or they might even find 3 in a day, but then they might go a couple of days without doing it or whatever. And I know you said about consistency and timelines, and that's part of the training as well, is saying make sure you've got one of those times that you can pop in each day, because I do think, exactly like you say, the consistency is super important. But I did work out actually that from how long she had said it had been taking her, she'd said it'd been between 10 to 30 minutes per response, and I worked out
that seems about right.
Yeah, I worked out if I was paying per hour, or her per hour for like what she's putting in, was somewhere between $25 to, if it was 30 minutes for every response, she'd be earning $25 per hour. If it was 10 minutes per response, it would have been something like $60 or $65 or something per hour. So I was actually, well, to be fair, that's actually not too bad, for most people. I think that's reasonable. And when I sort of said it to her like that, she was like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty good." So hopefully, she's been really good. Who's currently doing it, but she's only been doing it for about 6 weeks or so now.
6 weeks, yeah. So I do it a bit differently. I've just tracked like over time, and how many responses that we've responded to. So we have a master tracking sheet. On the tracking sheet, we have, who the source is, what the question was, the date that it was received, the date that it was sent back, and then a link to the answer. So we keep Google Docs for all the answers. And that's mostly for, so that I can go back at any time and just see how the answers are, like whether they're still quality or not. And then whether we, the date that we got the link, if we got the link, and then where the link was placed, the DR of the website, whether it was do follow or not. Like we have this big master tracking sheet. Over time, you'll start to realize what your hit rate is in terms of how many responses that you respond to versus, the links that you get. And we're at 13%. I think anything above 10% is probably pretty good. I think if you're less than 10%, you're probably going after the wrong type of response, or your responses are just not good enough. So I don't think I've talked with anybody that has higher than a 15%. I mean, if you're getting more than 15%, I mean, that's awesome.
Just funny you say that. I was just looking at my sheet. I have the same sort of thing. I've realised I've actually only ever built like 60 links to this website. You know, when some people are like, "Oh, I'll build that in a month," or
yeah.
How on earth are you doing that? But 30 of them are from HARO. There's 4 different people that have answered over time, and there's been 285 responses. So that's almost 10. No, that's more than 10%.
30 out of 285.
Yeah, that'll be just more than maybe 11, 12%. Quick maths.
Yeah, almost just about 11%. Yeah, so I think your hit rate is probably pretty good.
Yeah.
So I guess after that prospecting, once they realize that once they realize how how they are to respond, I like to train. Like, do you have a process for training on like how to respond, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so I just have 4 videos basically, which kind of shows how to set it up, and one's setting up, one's prospecting, one's responding. I can't remember what the other one is, but I think I basically just kind of show how I would respond. What I've done is, like, I'll give them some sort of template, which is kind of what I would use, and then obviously say tweak it to suit yourself, and then just there's a little tiny 1 sentence, 2 sentence introduction about why they could be a good fit for the article, and then depending on what the question is, quite often they will ask numerous questions, and so if that's the case, you just sort of say write the question and then write like an answer target snippet, just 1 sentence that is directly answers the question, even if it is a maybe, like just always directly, just like what Google's the feature snippet does in Google.
This is exactly why I think when you train your writers to write like that for your website, like when you're training writers to write for Google snippets, it transfers to these HARO requests as well, so right? For sure.
Yeah, funny enough, I actually just recently, my brother-in-law, so my wife's brother, he did a response for me because I just found there was a query that suited it, and I was like, they very rarely come up, and so I was like, any chance you could do this? And he sent me this huge document. I was like, oh my word, I'm gonna have to. I just personally went in for, because I was like, I'm not gonna send it back to him and say this is how you do it. I was just like, I'll just and just did a direct answer for each one. But it was really good. It was very, very good. It could have been an article in itself, really. It was that exact thing, like you say. If you've trained someone up to do it how you do on a website, then they will already know that, and they'll transfer that skill onto there. So I do like that.
So after that answer snippet, then what do you get into more detail and specifics?
Yeah, so it's just 1 sentence which is bolded, which is the answer, and then it does the but maybe, and like it depends on this, and so then just a few sentences ideally on going into each one. That's the process.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have a really good process for training your HARO writer. The key part is management. Like, so what I do is when I hire a HARO writer, I hire them, and the very first week or 2 weeks, there's sort of a training period. What I tell them is you're going to respond you're going to prospect on your own. You're going to pick the responses, and then you are going to send me the response, and I'm going to edit the response. And I'm providing, like, in that first 1 to 2 week time period, heavy feedback. I'm making videos. I'm saying this is good, this is not so good, and here's why. You need to be more specific. You need to give more examples. So I'm being really heavy in my feedback in the first 2 weeks. Then after that, I say, okay, I'm going to check in with you once a week. So I'm going to, so from week, let's say 3 and 4, You're now going to respond. At that point, they should be trained up. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to pick at random some responses, and once a week, I'm going to give you feedback on just random responses. So then there's still feedback being given on week 3 and 4, and then from week 4 onward, they should be good to go in terms of the standards. Now, with that said, I still do check in once a month just to make sure that they're doing quality HARO responses. I don't have it totally hands off. So once a month, I'll go in and I'll just pick a random answer, because they save all of their answers on Google Docs, and we have folder system set up for it, so I can very easily go in, pick an answer that they've done that last month, and then say, okay, here's how we could have improved it. It might still be like an amazing response, but I still say, here's how we could have made it better. And I can sort of give you some examples here. So I pulled up one of my HARO responses that was, what is this for February. The media outlet was just anonymous. The category was lifestyle and fitness, and the summary was unhealthy fats. So here was the query. Looking for wellness experts to weigh in, please provide the following. 1 unhealthy fat with a paragraph or 2 description of why and how it's so unhealthy. And then just your name, your title, your website, your socials, your LinkedIn profile. So really they wanted us to provide 1 unhealthy fat and why it was unhealthy, a paragraph or 2 in terms of why it was unhealthy. So the very first thing that I noticed in terms of this response, and in fact, maybe what I'll do here is I'll just read sort of the first paragraph of how my writer responded. So the very first paragraph is just who the person is, registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, writes for this website, just so that they know that we're an expert right off the bat. But the very first paragraph was, trans fats are by far the unhealthiest fats there are. Trans fats were created to turn liquid oil into solids. Trans fats are found in many fried foods and in margarine. Studies have shown that an increase of trans fats in your diet can lead to high cholesterol, which can increase your chances of developing heart disease. Now, that's okay. And this writer has been working at HARO, like at this point now, for probably 6+ months. So that is an okay first paragraph. But one thing that I mentioned to her was, like, you have to get into the head of the journalist, of the person who's writing this article. So you can tell, so the summary is called unhealthy fats. So what type of article do you think that she's writing? She's writing probably a listicle post of all the unhealthy types of fat. We don't know the use case, like unhealthy fats for this, unhealthy fats for that, but we know that it's going to be a listicle because she's saying, please provide the following: 1 unhealthy fat and a paragraph or 2 describing why and how it's unhealthy. So she's coming to HARO, or this journalist is coming to HARO, and basically wants us to do her work. She's going to pick 10 different experts, and she's going to just basically take the fat, the 2 paragraphs, and that's her article. So what are the H2s going to be like in that post? The H2 is going to be the fat, right? It's going to be margarine, butter, or whatever. Like, so I tried to coach her and say, like, listen, like, you need to structure this as if you're writing an H3 subheading and then a paragraph or 2 underneath that H3 subheading. So instead of starting by saying, like, listen, trans fats are by far the unhealthiest fats, that's not a food, right? That's not a food group. She wants to have the H3s as a food. So give the food. What is it? Are you going to refer to margarine? Are you going to refer to butter? Are you going to refer to some other type of fat? Then you can get into, okay, the reason why margarine is unhealthy is because it contains trans fat. And this is why trans fat is bad. The other thing that I think that was not done very well in this post was specific details. You want to have a response that reduces the likeliness that the journalist has to do a Google search after they read your answer. So if that journalist has to read your answer and then go do a Google search, you're not making their life easier. So if you say that margarine is an unhealthy fat and you say it's because of trans fats, you need to include how much trans fats does margarine have. Otherwise, they're going to have to go to Google and say how much fat does margarine have, and then put that in grams. It has whatever 10 grams of saturated fats per tablespoon or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. So don't make them do work. So at this point, like the feedback that I'm giving my HARO writer is just really trying to get in the head of why the journalist is writing that article, how that article is going to be structured, and then just sort of spoon feeding them that answer, right? Is that something similar to what you do, or do you have any questions with that?
Yeah, no, yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah, and I think it's quite it's a skill in itself, though, isn't it? Exactly like you say, is trying to get in the head of what someone is asking for. I think it's for us, because we've kind of done this for ages now, and you can kind of see what you straight away know, like what they are going to be after. It's kind of obvious, but it's something that's not that easy to teach. I find it's sort of one of those things where you just kind of got to use a little bit of your own, there's the nuance to it. There's no real, like, this is the exact answer every single time, because every query is going to be different, and you've kind of got to get into there, think, what are they actually after, what are they trying to get here? So yeah, no, I don't know if you've got any ways to sort of teach that a bit better.
Yeah, I think what you do with having that sort of bolded sentence or bolded couple of sentences, I think that's key in terms of how you structure the email and the response back. When you're doing the bolded sentence in the answer, that's being direct. So you have to be direct. You have to answer their question directly. And a lot of people who respond to HARO will just miss that direct piece. So be direct. It sounds like that's already happening. I guess another piece to it is be actionable. So the journalist is going to publish your answer, right? They're going to publish your response. Could somebody reading that response take an action from it? That's what journalists like. They like that anything that they publish, that people can then finish reading their article and go take an action. So it has to be super actionable, whether that's for fitness or finance or business or whatever. It has to be actionable advice. The actionable pieces are actually what are going to get you published on these websites. So I'll give you another example. And this was actually a really, really poor response, and I'm surprised that she had submitted this. So this was on our post that was tips for going off keto. And specifically, this was for the media outlet Pop Sugar. So Pop Sugar, big magazine, I don't know, it's probably DR 80 plus. They're specifically looking for RDs. So write a post. It's funny, it's like we're doing their work for them. It's like the query is writing a post. She's saying writing a post on the keto diet. I need an RD to weigh in with tips for going off the diet. May also have, anyways, whatever. It says something else here, but that's really what the question is. Writing a post on the keto diet, need an RD to weigh in on tips for going off of the diet. So she did something. So my HARO said that there are 3 things that you can do, which is great. The first thing that she said, if you're going off the keto diet, is, and she bolded this, is only include 50 grams of carbs on the first day. So that's like really good, specific, direct, and actionable. But in her sort of like follow-up paragraph to explain what she meant there, she was not very actionable in sort of the nuance. And that's you're not going to get quoted if you're being vague. So I'll read this paragraph here, and I'll just sort of show you sort of where I think it's vague. So only include 50 grams of carbs on the first 3 days. A keto diet, for anybody that doesn't know, is just you're basically on a low carb and no carb diet. It might be tempting going from keto to including all of your favorite carb-based foods. However, it is essential that you do it slowly. Include one carb source during the day in small portions. If you don't have any symptoms, then add another source in small amounts the following week. So there's a lot of vague stuff in there. So she's saying like include one carb source. What kind of carb source? Yeah. What exactly, right? She's saying so include one carb source during the day in small portions. what's the portion size, right? If you don't have any symptoms, then add another source. What would the symptoms be? How does somebody know if they're responding well or not, right? So being vague with the symptoms. So if you don't have any symptoms, then add another source in small amounts the next week. Well, what would that be? It's sort of like, if I'm coming to you as a registered dietitian, I want you to give me a plan. Eat this amount this week, the following week, increase by 10%, moving to, like, give me the prescription, give me the actionable advice. So anyways, this response was not, I mean, we didn't get a link from this because we weren't actionable. And I find that the more actionable you can be. So if you're going to like a financial planner, if you're going to a business coach, if you're going to a registered dietitian or a personal trainer, they're going to create a plan for you, an actionable plan. That's how you sort of have to be approaching some of these responses, I find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I could talk to you about nutrition all day probably, but that does that, and that drives me mad in the world of nutrition, where someone just says, 50 grams of carbs. It's like, no one knows what's 50 grams of carbs. Like, what is 50 grams of carbs?
There's no context there, yeah.
Or is it like, because in keto, isn't it all about net carbs, isn't it? Where you take off the fiber, and it's very confusing for someone that doesn't really know much about keto. It's it does always drive me mad. Even if you Google like keto diet plan or something, I guarantee it will be wishy-washy stuff. Like, there won't be here is your meal plan, which is all that anyone really wants, is like, what can I actually eat? Not, I don't want to know how many carbs and stuff like that. I just want to know what food I need to put in my body and stuff. So
that's exactly it. It's funny you say that, because I just purchased a keto website, really, really small website, and I'm actually planning to merge it into one of my other sites. But before we merge it, I have an editor, and I'm like, we got to get this content. Like, there's just some absolute like must-haves that are missing. It's exactly what you're saying. It's just like, it's like, we got to be specific. We got to be actionable. Like, it's just like, it's not good enough to merge over to our site right now. So yeah, that's sort of like in terms of like responses, I think the things that are super key, just trying to get in the head of the journalist. Why are they writing the post, and just getting into like, what is the structure of their post going to be? Because maybe you can spoon feed it to them a bit easier. And then also, just trying to be direct again with that answer target, and then actionable. What is the actionable piece? Can somebody take an action after it? Any other questions? Because I know that we could. I mean, I'm happy to answer any other questions with HARO. You had a few more. Yeah,
there's a couple more, and it's stuff that I did just want to jump back to as well. But
sure.
Would you use like a call to action as well at the end? Like, do you say, please link to me, or like, I don't know the best way to go about it, or do you just say thanks?
So we don't ask for a link. I think it's it's implied. So we've tracked all of the, so we don't ask for a link. We've tracked all of our responses. We look for brand mentions, and we look for the author's name as well. So we have sort of alerts set up for the author's name, and there's not been a single time where we haven't been linked to. They will provide a link. So I don't think it's necessary. Now, if it does happen, it's completely the exception, not the rule. And I think what you would do in that situation is just have, so we have a list of all of the sites that we've gotten a link from. And so, my HARO writer has that list and just basically doesn't, excludes it from their prospecting. So we would just probably add that link to that sort of exclusion list and say, yeah, don't go after this website anymore because they don't provide links. But we haven't had that. So I think that the other piece to that is, no follow versus do follow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, as you probably know, a lot of those higher authority, like I'm talking like, DR 90 plus, they're just going to no follow your link. So you have to decide like whether that matters to you. Personally, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if it's no follow, if it's from a DR 90 plus or DR 80 plus. But you will find that a good portion of your links are actually no follow. If you're going, like Forbes magazine or whatever, they're going to be no follow. So
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We've had a few of them. I've actually had at least a couple that I know of where they just didn't provide a link. And I do wonder, it was definitely in like the early stage of the website. So I wonder whether it was, just the way the website looked, or
oh, maybe, yeah, maybe.
I wonder if all of that, like what you were mentioning earlier, which, yeah, I know you were very kind about my about page, but I realized I don't have links to anyone's LinkedIn profile. So
I thought you did there, but yeah, I mean, it would be good to.
I definitely need to do that.
Oh, you link their names, but okay, it's going to their their category author page. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, but I will definitely add that. Yeah, that was a really good tip as well. And yeah, the other thing as well, you said that you use their email, you use first name at website.com. I've always done that, but I've always used my hosting webmail provider, and just recently I just got like the actual G Suite paid account thing, and that kind of messed up the MX records. I'm learning a lot about email and stuff in this last few weeks, and so how do you go about that now? Do you just add an alias, or do you pay for a new account each time that you have a...
Actually, what I do for any prospecting, for any outreach is, so I'll have like, I'll actually have another domain. So like if it's like, whatever, Ben at company.com, I'll have another one that's Ben at company.net.
Yeah.
And we'll email from the .net one. And so, yeah, that'll just be something that I pay for on G Suite, whatever it is, $10 or $15 a month.
Cool.
And we'll use that for HARO and some other outreach as well.
Do you think with HARO it matters too much? Because I've just set up a paid one with my .com. I've actually just got a .us, which I've just found out is actually quite spammy, but I had no idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I just saw this article. It was like 10 most spammy domain names, and it was like,
oh, I didn't know that.
Something, and I was like, oh man, but I don't know if it matters that much. But I just did that because I'm just setting up. I'm trying to like figure out the whole mass email, which everyone hates. Everyone hates getting those emails, but I'm trying to figure out a nice way to do that, hopefully. But I'm going to use that for that. Do you think using HARO with a .com matters too much?
No, I don't think it matters. Yeah, so long as it's branded, I don't think it matters. So long as it's a branded email. So for me, I will use that same email for some other outreach as well, just so that we just have one central database, like one central email for all of the email outreach. Now, I'm not doing mass amounts of outreach, so like other I don't know, link builders, your classic link builders might disagree and might have a sort of another system so that they don't burn email addresses or whatever. I'm not too savvy with that, but I just like to, from like a cost perspective, I don't want to have multiple emails. I want to have just one sort of link building email, and that includes HARO. And I don't think it matters whether it's .net or .com or whatever, so long as it's branded with the company. I think that's fine.
Cool. Yep. That makes sense. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. The only other thing as well is, I'm sure some people will be thinking as well, like, does it matter? We're talking about like experts. Does it matter if they're not niche specific? So like if you had a baseball site, does it matter if you're getting a registered dietitian? Like that's a very common one that comes up. Is that a bad thing? Is it not worth it? Like where's the cutoff point sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I think different people are going to have, I mean, I'd be interested to hear what you think, but I think the newer your site, I think the more niche relevant it has to be. I think as your site grows, and it grows both in like traffic, so 100,000 page views, 500,000 page views, whatever, and it grows in DR, I think you can probably widen out the sort of the different niches that you go after. I've come across lots of sites that are doing HARO, and I'm sort of just seeing what they're doing and whatever. And I'll come across a home improvement site that will have a registered dietitian doing HARO for their home improvement site, because they're just like, oh, they're talking about kitchens on their site, and they're responding to kitchen home improvements, and they're getting the registered dietitian to respond to requests. I don't know. I mean, it was a pretty big site. It was a pretty authoritative site as it was. Maybe that works for them. I think if you're a smaller site, a newer site, I don't think that going after those broader type, the broader niches is probably worthwhile. Maybe there is some exception to, like, I don't know, like some people will respond to business queries. Like, so like, for example, like I might go into HARO and there might be some sort of like, there might be some request about running a business or running an online business, or, so you could respond as sort of the entrepreneur. But I think I would probably keep those to few and far between. Like I wouldn't probably go after a whole lot of those. I think if you're doing HARO to build some strong homepage links, and I think you probably want them to be niche relevant if you're early on. That's my gut feeling.
Yeah, actually, just on that point, I've always had my dad, who is a retired doctor, which is not really anything to do with my niche, and he's always wanted to get involved with the website, and he was like, can I write for like one of your sites or something? And I was like, I don't think it's really going to fit with anything on this site or any of the other sites. And I was like, I don't really want to be the guy that has to like train him up, because so I was like, actually, what would work really well, there's tons of queries that come up. So maybe if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't want to be spending that much money on links, which I was in that boat not too long ago, then maybe you have someone that's close to you or something that has some sort of qualifications that you could use to your advantage, and to help you out if they are someone that you get on with well with.
Yeah, I mean, it's like put him to work, put him back to work on HARO. Because I mean, there's lots of requests that, and I think journalists are probably being a bit more picky. Like they're actually citing specific credentials. It's like, I'm looking for like, an MD, but not just an MD, like that specializes in like prenatal something or other, or right, so it's like they're pretty specific now. I think it's hard to. It would be hard to do HARO, I would imagine, if you don't have some of those credentials or somebody on board with those credentials. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool, Mike. I think we've covered a lot. I mean, obviously we can take this offline and chat some more, but a good chat here. I think that people will have learned a little bit about HARO, and we'll have to touch base in a few months and hear how it's going.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. Cheers for that, Ben.
Cool. Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Until the next episode, goodbye.